Welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast, a show about crafting a life you love and making work optional, using the tools of mindfulness, envisioning, and financial independence. I'm your host, Adam Cuello, and I'm so glad you're here. Each episode of the Mindful Fire Podcast explores these three tools through teachings, guided meditations, and inspiring interviews with people actually living them to craft a life they love. At its core, Mindful Fire is about creating more awareness and choice in your life. Mindfulness helps you develop self-awareness to know yourself better and what's most important to you by practicing a kind, curious awareness. Envisioning is all about choosing to think big about your life and putting the power of your predicting brain to work to create the life you dream of. And financial independence brings awareness and choice to your financial life, empowering you to make your vision a reality by getting your money sorted out and ultimately making work optional. And here's the best part. You don't have to wait until you reach financial independence to live out your vision. Mindful Fire is about using these tools to craft that life now on the path to financial independence and beyond. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Let's jump into today's episode. Carolina, welcome to the Mindful Fire Podcast. I'm so thrilled to have you here.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome to finally have you on the podcast. I know we have been talking about this for a little while. You and I connected a while ago on the internet because we had similar interests on mindfulness and search inside yourself. And our mutual friend Andres introduced us together. And we had a great chat a few weeks ago. And I'm so thrilled to have you on the podcast today to talk about purpose. And so to start, I'd love to have you share a little bit about who you are, your journey, and what you're up to in the world.
I tend to introduce myself nowadays as a purpose mentor, a facilitator, a teacher, and an eternal student of all things human flourishing. Now, that's today, but Adam, you know that my journey didn't start here, and I've had to reinvent myself a few times. I grew up in Colombia in South America and moved to the US supposedly for 6 months to study English when I was 17. But I ended up getting a scholarship to go to college. And so I ended up staying, and the scholarship was specifically on business, international business. So I had to major in that, which made my decision fairly easy. So I went that route without really thinking about it. As an immigrant trying to make ends meet, that was just such a gift. So I took it and I went with it. And so it was just like one thing led to the next. So international business major. So I went to work in marketing at a media and entertainment company in Washington, D.C. And then, of course, I kind of wanted the next step. So master's degree. So I moved to New York City, went to NYU to get an MBA. And then I was in New York. So what do? You go to finance. So I moved to work in financial services in the financial district of Manhattan. So I went all in. And then someone approached me one day about a role at Google. And so I started working at Google in New York, then led to a move to Silicon Valley. So you can tell this upward movement and different industries. And I was just kind of doing the thing that I thought I needed to do to be happy. But at some point, I was at Google working in Silicon Valley, and I was recently married, but my marriage was not working really well. And so what did I do? I put all my energy, all my dedication, all my time to work. That's all I had. I didn't have community in Silicon Valley, in Mountain View. I was living there back then. And so I burnt out. That's just what happened. I burnt out. I didn't have community. I didn't have a support system. My marriage was not well. So when both the personal side and the work side are not working well, that's a really difficult combination. I ended up experiencing anxiety and depression, but I masked it. I don't, because we don't talk about mental health at work. And so I would wear my mask, pretend I was okay. Good morning, everybody. Showing up to work, trying from the bottom of my heart, really trying to give it my best and give it my all to work. But I couldn't. I physically couldn't, emotionally couldn't. I hit rock bottom, ended up taking a leave of absence. Back then, it was not that popular. And I felt like a failure because I felt weak. Like, oh, you couldn't keep up, right? Like you couldn't do it. And I felt very disappointed in myself and ashamed. There was a lot of shame. I still took time off because I just couldn't hide it anymore. So when I did that, I didn't want to be close to anyone. I didn't want to be close to anything that was familiar. So I went on a trip around the world on my own, took a backpack and just like left. The reason I bring that up is because it was so transformational. It was there when I deepened my mindfulness practice and when I really reconnected to myself. And it's funny that a lot of people say, oh, you're the Colombian version of Eat, Pray, Love, because I indeed lived in an ashram in India. I went to Italy to do healing with the arts. Also ended up going to Africa and Singapore and Colombia. And when I got back, I was a different person. I was a different person. And I was no longer so focused on my own, I'll just name it, ego. And instead, I wanted to serve. I wanted to connect people. So I still got back to Google. And then, this is something that you and I have in common, I took the Search Inside Yourself program. This is the mindfulness program that was born at Google. It became very popular. And I took it and I was like, oh, this is it. This gives me language to what I was doing in India that I really couldn't talk about in the corporate setting. Ended up becoming certified as a teacher like you. And eventually I decided to quit my full-time job at Google to join the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. It's a nonprofit that was born at Google, and it became an independent nonprofit to teach emotional intelligence, mindfulness, leadership, compassion to the world. And so it's funny that that trip around the world was really a trip to search inside myself. And I connected to my deeper sense of purpose. That's why purpose is so important to me, because it really shifted the way I approached work and life. And a year and a half ago, I decided to become independent and to launch my own Purpose Academy. So today I do one-on-one coaching in purpose, really helping people reconnect to their purpose from within, especially using contemplative practices. I also do workshops and I do keynotes and I speak at organizations and companies. I publish 2 books. One is The Path to Flourishing, based on that trip around the world. I tell my entire story. It's a little bit of a Colombian soap opera too. And then a month ago, I released The Purpose Reset, which I co-authored with Rich Fernandez and Steph Stern. That's what brings me here. I'm sorry, it's a long story. I feel like I gave you my entire autobiography, but it highlights the importance of alignment to purpose.
Yeah, that's amazing. What a journey. It has it all. You know, it has the immigrant story, it has the climbing the corporate ladder, it has the burnout, and then kind of leaving it all behind and going and traveling around the world to reconnect with yourself. I think that is incredible. What about the trip specifically allowed you to connect with yourself, reconnect with yourself and who you are and what your purpose is?
I'd never asked myself that specific question, like what specifically about the trip. I think what comes to mind, and I write about it in my book, is not knowing anyone. So I left and the first place I landed was Florence in Italy. And it was so refreshing to not have the weight of that story. I didn't have the weight of the immigrant story, the Hispanic in the US trying to make it. I didn't have the weight of being the good student, the good worker. I didn't have the story with me of being the good wife or having a title at Google or just like the brand. I was free from labels. And I remember thinking I was sitting in an art class and I had an empty canvas in front of me. And that's what it felt like. Just like empty canvas. No one knows anything about me. I don't have to keep up with anyone's expectations, which, by the way, it's all mental. It's all like, I made it up. It's all my thing, but I was carrying it. And when I got there, I was so free to just be a human being taking an art class, a human being having an amazing gelato, a human being looking at the sunset, just to be after doing so much, after the hustle, the striving, the accomplishing over and over again. I think that's what burnt me out. And so it was beautiful to just not have any labels, remove myself from all of that. And out of that sense of stillness, clarity, some emptiness, I was able to reconnect with that true self, right? So kind of peeling all the layers of the onion, and what was inside was just my true self authentically. And I was able to do deep introspection and reflection on who am I really? And how am I here to serve? What am I here to do? Who do I want to become? I get to choose that. And in my prior story, I was so caught up in the hamster wheel that I didn't have that space, or I didn't make the space to do that reflection, to ask myself the hard question.
Wow. I'm so glad I asked, because that is profound, honestly. And I resonate a lot with that. What you're saying about the story that we create. I talk a lot in my practice and my teaching and my coaching and all of this around that our story creates our reality. But what you're saying really makes me think it's not just the story that we're telling ourselves, it's the story that we are carrying and trying to maintain. The way I'm thinking about this is, I'm kind of feeling that now, honestly. Like I'm, in this new chapter of my life, I'm essentially living the life that I wanted to live, yet I still feel like I'm forcing a little bit rather than allowing. And I'm trying to like maintain a story. One story is I'm the mindfulness guy, right? I got the Mindful Fire podcast. I teach mindfulness. I did all the search inside yourself, all this stuff. And yet I'm losing my shit with my kids. And I'm just like not mindful a lot of the time, right? So like that is at odds. When I'm trying to create with this business, I know that I'm in like the seed planting phase, but I'm also like still caught up in that story from my whole life and 14 years at Google, where it's like, go, go, go. Like you should be further along, this and that story. And it's just exhausting. And so the idea of letting go of that story and just like reconnecting. And I'm feeling a very strong urge to do that, to like just focus on health and mindfulness and connecting with myself and with my kids and my wife. Like all the other stuff doesn't matter and will happen in its own time. And so I don't mean to make this about me, but I resonated deeply with what you're saying.
And I'm resonating so deeply with what you just said. And thank you for naming it, Adam, because on LinkedIn, we all look so perfect and we're all so delighted and honored.
Yes, exactly. I love
and excited.
I love that, right? Like I'm delighted. It's an honor to say that I've taken this position.
I truly enjoyed it. And I do it too, right? Like
we all do.
The scenes.
Exactly. I spend too much time on LinkedIn. That's probably part of my problem, honestly.
And we're supposed to be somewhere. And I can so relate to what you're saying. I am the purpose coach. And sometimes I'm still lost and confused. Part of it is I'm using my story to support other people. So it's good that I get lost. One, it gives me more empathy. Two, it gives me the tools that I can share. Mm-hmm. So it's all part of the journey. But then I'm like, who am I? Imposter syndrome. Who am I to be coaching other people when I sometimes also ask the question and get lost and get confused? And the same goes with the business. I have 20 years in marketing. My business should be somewhere else. And who am I to be talking to people about personal branding if I'm not there? And then I'm just like, again, exhausted. And so
it's exhausting.
Burnout that I used to attribute to other companies, somehow I'm carrying with me. And so what is my role here? And what am I carrying that is making it continue despite working for myself? Separate conversation. I think, we could talk a lot about that as being independent.
Yeah, no, it's very reassuring that I'm not the only one, because in this solo entrepreneurship, you don't get that when you're at work at Google or wherever, and you talk to people in the micro kitchen and everyone's complaining about reorgs and this and that, like you can commiserate and be like, all right, like I'm not crazy. It's not just me. But when you're living the life that you said you wanted to live, and yet you still are carrying these old stories, these old patterns, and they're making you feel like you aren't where you should be, like it's helpful to know that you're not the only one.
You're not. And I wish I could just teletransport myself there and go for a walk in that beautiful garden that you have and just talk about that, because it's real. It's real. And I know that so many people out there are also experiencing it.
So you came back, you have this desire to serve. Sounds like you went and you did that. You went to Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, and now you're helping people as a purpose coach on your own. So let's talk. Well, first you mentioned flourishing, human flourishing. You wrote your first book on that. What does human flourishing mean? Let's start there.
My definition of flourishing is a little different to the one provided by positive psychologists. And at the same time, we all end up in the same place. But when I was doing my research on happiness, and then what happened was, I used this overachiever energy that I applied to school and work my entire life. And then I shifted it and channeled it to, I want to figure out happiness. And so I read all the books, listened to all the podcasts, took all the courses, attended all the retreats that I could in order to figure it out. And then I realized that happiness was not the word I was seeking. It was not the emotion I was seeking. I wanted to have happy moments, but I realized that the connotation of happiness is that of an euphoric state, laughter, big smiles, high energy, people kind of like skipping and rainbows and unicorns and all of that, right? It felt a little utopic and not stable. I was looking for something that would allow me to be both in the peaks and the valleys of my life. And I couldn't figure out what it was until I found this word. It's a word in Spanish that actually defines it. And unfortunately, there's no literal translation for that word. So it's a combination of feeling whole, feeling complete, and feeling serene at the same time. So that's the name of my book in Spanish. And when I was doing the translation, the word that came closest to it was flourishing. So I talk about it as our natural state. This is who we truly are. Imagine like the blue sky. It's always there. We always have it. It's what's there. However, sometimes it gets covered by clouds, and all we have to do is kind of remove what covers the true state. That's how I feel with flourishing. I think that's our natural state, that state when we are in true connection with our inner selves, with our inner wisdom, with our essence, who we truly are. And what we need to do is to remove what covers that state, what changes our mindset and prevents us from truly seeing and experiencing it. So it's a state of feeling whole, complete, interconnected, and at peace at the same time, and joyful.
And what are those things that cover that blue sky of our natural sense of flourishing?
I think there's a lot related to the mind, what we think. So in the book, I talk about 7 principles that allow us to discover, to remove what covers that real state of flourishing. And 7 principles are pause, presence, perspective, purpose, acceptance, curiosity, and compassion. So with that, I wholeheartedly believe and continue to not only find the research, but also live it in my own life, that with those practices, because they're a practice that we get to cultivate, we can actually reconnect to that state of flourishing. So taking a pause, stopping, opening up spaces for stillness, for quiet, for solitude, or simply to stop doing and change that mindset from doing to being. Presence. You and I have done a lot of research, and we also are practitioners of presence by being mindfulness practitioners. Perspective. what you tell yourself matters and what you focus on grows. So what's the story we're telling ourselves? Then purpose, of course, which is one chapter in my book, and it became a new book in my academy. So of course that one matters because it gives us significance, meaning, motivation. Then there is acceptance. When I realized that we suffer the most when we reject the present as it is. And it doesn't mean that we don't suffer from painful events. But what ends up happening is that we add so much more to the event through the way we explain or live the event itself. So acceptance is a beautiful practice, not a passive one, actually, but a very active practice to navigate situations. And then we have curiosity, which started as something small when I was writing the book. And the more I research it, the more I love it. It's also quite tied to your purpose. But curiosity, beginner's mind, seeing everything with innocence, non judgment. And lastly, compassion, of course. Starts with the self-compassion. And then how do we bring our love to the world through what we do and through who we are?
Love it. Those are, yeah, as you were saying them, I was like, oh yeah, that makes a ton of sense. That makes so much sense. One that you were saying, where you were talking about acceptance, and we suffer the most when we, what I call fight reality, essentially. We're rejecting what is. And one of the things that I love from my training as a search inside yourself facilitator, I came across this phrase, it's like this. And I think that is so powerful because, yeah, we're suffering when we're resisting, right? I was arguing with my kids earlier, having to ask my son to eat every single bite of his breakfast. And I was losing it. I was so frustrated and I was fighting reality. He's not eating it. So I'm fighting reality by trying to expect it to be different. We do that all the time. And so when we can remember it's like this and bring that curiosity to, okay, how is it? How am I experiencing this? How am I reacting to this? And what would be more useful? It's a shift that we can all make. And I'll be the first to say, like, it's very hard to notice in the moment. But the more we practice it, the more we're able to recognize and shift and say, why am I fighting reality? He doesn't want to eat. He can go to school hungry. That's fine. He'll learn his lesson. Or maybe there's something else I can give him that'll eat. Like it doesn't have to be a battle every time.
It's hard, though. You really want him to eat his breakfast.
I really do. Yeah, I really did. Everything that we're talking about here is affecting everything else. The constant doing and the story of I'm not far along is not to mention reading the news and seeing what's going on in the world. Yeah. All of these things are coming into my interactions with my kids, and then their lack of listening triggers me. It's just like all a swirl of craziness.
And it's the swirl of craziness of being a human being.
Exactly.
In this world right now. We're all, just that reminder, we're all struggling with something, whether it's breakfast or, gosh, being at the potential brink of another war, like all of it. It is difficult to be a human being. And let's just recognize that and offer one another kindness. And when it comes to acceptance, I have to say I struggled with that a lot. I'm like, no, I'm not going to accept the situation. And if I accept it, will I ever grow? So I'm like, let's do it, be disciplined, strict with my routine, just so I make it happen. And that has a purpose and that has served. But acceptance is not passive, as I was saying. It is the recognition of what is within my control. And for that, you go and do it. Especially as we're thinking about global events, whatever is within your control, please do it. The world needs you. But whatever is outside, there is that recognition of this is the situation just as it is. How can I observe it? How can I learn from it? But if I have no control over it, I am going to surrender to a bigger plan, is how I think about it. Again, not passive, but actively looking into it, actively facing the situation instead of putting it under the rug, ignoring it, or fighting it, which is what we tend to do. Fighting what? You can't even control it. There's so much beauty in that practice of acceptance. And it reminds me of the rain practice, the stop practice. Stop is how I usually talk about it. So the moment something arises, can we stop first, take a pause? So stop what you're doing, then take a breath or take a walk, take space, take what you need in that moment, then observe. And I think this is probably the most important one, or the one we tend to skip the most, which is observe what's happening with a little bit of distance. Can you be the observer of the situation? Can you understand what's triggering here? Can you recognize what's within your control and what's outside of it? Observe. And then based on that observation, P for proceed. So stop, take a breath, observe, proceed. You proceed in a more proactive than reactive way. And the stop practice can take a few seconds if you're used to it, or it can take a week or a month, right? Sometimes, someone sends you an email and you're like, oh, here we go. I'm going to react and type everything I want to tell you. So in that moment, you stop. Or it can be a bigger situation that requires stillness and reflection for a little bit longer.
I love the stop practice. I love that you got to the same place that I got to. When I would teach Search Inside Yourself, and we would talk about what we call in that program, it's SBNRR, right?
Yes.
Stop, breathe, notice, reflect, respond. I always found that a little bit clunky, but there was always a stop sign on the slide. So I was like, stop is perfect. And I came to the exact letters that you did. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love it.
Stop, take a breath. I like take a walk. I take space. I love all of that. Observe and proceed. It's so funny. I came to the exact same thing. I would always put a slide in there or just talk about it, but it's powerful. And I could use more of that practice in my life because with young kids, there are thousands of moments a day where that comes in handy.
They're great teachers. They're really good teachers.
Yes. Like I did a retreat, which hopefully I'll go to this year again with John Kabat-Zinn back in 2018. And in the opening session, said, I'm about to have a kid. My life's going to change a lot. And he said, you'll have your own little Zen teacher. And he is right. He is right.
Yes, indeed. I love John.
Yeah, they sure bring out all of the things. Like, why am I getting so frustrated about him eating his breakfast? Like, there's something else going on there. It's not the breakfast. Anyways, I love that. I love this idea of removing the clouds to get to the kind of natural essence of flourishing. And I love the approach of the 7 practices that we can cultivate to do that. Let's shift now to dive in on purpose. I know that's a huge aspect of your work now. So I guess my first question is related to how common is it that people are clear on their purpose? Do you find that most people are connected with their purpose or wanting to connect with it?
I think we have very different definitions of purpose. And as a result, people are a little confused most of the time about their purpose. I think the word I would use is confusion. It's like, is this my purpose? Did I find my purpose? We tend to use the verb to find when speaking about purpose, which I prefer not to use. So there's a little bit of confusion. Yet, that's semantics. What I think matters most is most people are not finding meaning in their life. And there's so much burnout and there's so much dissatisfaction and lack of fulfillment. And so I think that has been at the core of my work, really trying to understand what is it that we're not fulfilled, that we're not finding meaning, that we're not feeling this sense of self-realization, even when on paper you should, right? Even If you have the house, the money, the title, the kids, the whatever, there is that sense of lack of meaning. I would actually argue that it is exacerbated once you think you have it all, because then you go into emptiness. I felt it. Like, I have it all. Why this sensation? And it usually starts with discomfort, grows into frustration, then gets into confusion, all the way into some anxiety, preoccupation about the future, which eventually could evolve into depression, burnout, apathy, dissociation. I don't know how many people listening or watching this have gone through that or know someone who has. And it's very, very difficult to deal with it. And so all the questions come up, and the more questions we feel, the more uncertainty we feel, the scarier it becomes to make a change. And so I observe so many people, especially within organizations. I tend to work a lot with companies. It is really heartbreaking to see how many people are not okay in their lives. They're either in meh state. Adam Grant, I remember, wrote an article on the state of languishing, right? So like, meh, life, whatever. That's in a good day or that's in a good situation. But all the way to, I hate waking up in the morning. I don't have any motivation, all the way to working in toxic environments or just plain out really disliking their day to day. It's concerning. We were not born for this. We were not born. And I'm sorry if I get a little woo here, but sometimes I wonder about the mystery and the almost kind of like, scientifically speaking, miracle of being alive. Just for like a human being to be born requires so much, scientifically speaking, biologically speaking, for Earth to hold so many people. It takes so much for someone to get here, for us to be using our days like this. And then to remember that our days are limited, that we have, I like to talk about, we have a finite number of heartbeats that we're born with. And nobody knows how many we have. Nobody knows how many we have left. So how do we want to live? Is that state of languishing what we want for our day-to-day? Is that the example we want to give to our kids? You can see I'm really passionate about this, and I'm trying to figure it out. One, for my own benefit, because I wanted to reconnect with my purpose. And two, because I don't want to keep it to myself. I want to contribute a little bit into seeing more people be better, feel better, being well, at the very least, all the way to flourishing and really kind of unlocking their full potential. So purpose is that. It's the process. It's a process, not a destination. It's the journey itself. And I don't say that lightly. I do believe it. It's the journey itself teaches us about ourselves and reconnects us to who we truly are in the most authentic way. I see it like driving a car and you have a GPS, right? As you're driving and, let's say you take a turn and it's not meant to be your turn. There is something in life that happens that will bring you back, like a little GPS, recalculating. And so you kind of come back to your authentic self, who you truly are, putting aside all the expectations that come from external sources that force you or guide you to be who you're not. It's this ongoing path to return to authenticity, to return to self. And I see purpose as having three elements: the doing, which is usually what we talk about when we talk about purpose. What is it that I do? My job, my legacy. The being, who you are. What do you bring to the world just by who you are, by existing? And serving. I don't think we can talk about purpose without talking about service.
Very interesting. Yeah. It's cool to think about this from a different perspective, right? Because I have a sense of what my purpose is, which is creating opportunity through connection. That's kind of how I summarize it. And we've explored this idea of purpose on the podcast before with Jordan Grummett, also known as Doc G, who wrote a book called The Purpose Code. He does talk also about purpose confusion. And I know you just spoke with him yesterday on his podcast, which is amazing.
It's amazing. He's phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, I think purpose is so important. And I know that he talks about big P purpose, what we often think of as purpose as like changing the world and curing cancer and all these things. But he says actually the way to purpose is through little P purpose, just your own little way of doing it, which relates a lot to what you're saying about it's the journey. It's actually, we're living it ongoing. It's not a destination. It's a way of being and doing and serving in the world, which is, I think, spot on and much more attainable than the idea of this huge idea that, oh, I got to do something grand. Most of us aren't going to do anything grand, but we are going to impact our life, our family's life, our friends' life, our community. And that might be even more important. One question that I'm curious, and I'd love your thoughts on, and maybe we can kind of explore this with my purpose, is how to keep it front of mind, how to remember to do it, to be it, I guess. So let's take my example, right? Creating opportunity through connection.
Creating opportunity through connection. How did you land to that statement, first of all?
It's a good question. I've been saying it for a long time, thinking about it for a long time. It just when I feel most alive and most myself is when I'm bringing people together, creating, like, for instance, I've helped many people get jobs. My brother getting a job at Google, my friend Scott getting a job where he's been working for a long time, bringing people over to my team when I was on Google Analytics Premium, helping two of my friends, both named David, get jobs on the team. Like, I love that. I love doing what I call Legends dinners, where I used to do this when I'd go visit New York for work when I lived in San Francisco. I'd come to the city, I'd invite everyone I know in the city to dinner, and whoever wants to show up can show up, and everyone gets to know each other and has a good time, and people leave as friends. I love that so much. And more recently, someone else I had on the podcast, her name's Marty Adler. She's a coach. I talk to her every once in a while, just like she's like a mentor of mine. I talk to her every once in a while and she's like, yeah, that's great. Creating opportunity to connection. But what does that mean? Like, how do you actually live that? And like, how can you get more specific? Because that could be anything. And so kind of where I'm at now is that I create opportunity through connection by connecting people with themselves and their biggest vision for their life. And so that is more in line with kind of what I'm doing, with the podcast, teaching mindfulness, with teaching envisioning. It's really like connect with who you are, what you really want through developing self-awareness, self-compassion, all of that. And then what do you actually want? Connecting with your biggest vision for life.
I love it. I can so see it now. Yes. Starting with the self, the authenticity. And then from that perspective, from that place of truth, essence, authenticity, then envisioning your life, what's next for you. And you were asking, how do you get to live it? Well, you do it, right? And I really like your example, bringing in the concept of little P from the purpose code. You do it every day, right? You probably do it with your kids. You're doing it through your podcast. You do it through the workshops you lead. Does it not feel that way? Or would you want to increase your purpose, or what's missing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I feel like I do it naturally. Like it is who I am, right? Like when we first chatted and you told me you love purpose, my first thought is connect her with
Right
joy.
away. Yes, you did.
Instantly.
That's right.
So it is the way that I default to. But I guess it gets to, I think it's just related to the same thing we were talking about before, where I don't feel like I'm far enough along, which is completely arbitrary, right? So it gets into this concept, the gap and the gain. Have you read that book? Yeah, it's essentially, and I was talking about it on a podcast the other day, it's the gap is between where you are and where you think you should be. It's like trying to chase the horizon. You're trying to chase an ideal. You're never going to get there. And so you're always going to be lacking. But instead, if you focus on the gain, the progress that you've made by comparing where you are to where you were before, or just appreciating the progress that you're making, you're going to feel encouraged, like you're being successful in making progress. And I know that, but I need to operationalize it more. And basically, the book suggests at the end of each day, write down 3 gains that you had for that day, 3 ways you made progress in any area of life, and then 3 gains that you want to have tomorrow. So you're just kind of envisioning those gains. They're not goals. They're not like a checklist. They can be, but you don't have, that's not the intention of it. It's just what would be great if I had these gains tomorrow. And so getting back to the purpose stuff, I think for me, it's like just recognizing more when and how I'm doing it to make it more top of mind all the time. Am I connecting with my kids? Sort of. Honestly, I feel like I'm just like saying, don't do this, stop that, don't get hurt. Like it's a lot of that. So I'd like to connect more with them. And I feel like I don't know, caught up in all the things, and like I'm caught up in the gap so much that it's disconnecting me from actually showing up in that way a lot of time.
We're so caught up in the gap, in the not enoughness, but it's exhausting. I frequently think about it from the feminine and masculine leadership archetypes. And so this has nothing to do with gender, but it's just the way we lead our lives, the way we lead teams. And it can be, the traditional description of the masculine is very structured, goal-oriented. There's a bit of competition. There is discipline. There is the doing. And then the feminine is flowing, containing, nurturing, right? And so I notice that now, especially as an entrepreneur that I am today, I constantly go back between the two. And is that dance? I'm seeing it as a dance. Then I start judging myself for like, I'm going too far in the masculine. I'm going too far in the feminine. And I was just like, let me dance. Let me dance. And there will be some days where I'm like, okay, we need the numbers and we need the metrics and the structure and what's the next goal, and have those big milestones and have something to work toward, an anchor point, my big objectives, right? And I'm all about KPIs and OKRs, even in my own business for myself, because I do that. You know what? Let me take a moment to pause and relax. I'm just going to go for a walk all day today and think and spark creativity and really connect with my audience, and how can I nurture them and empathize, and what's that human connection, and what could I do that would be helpful? And it's a dance. And I don't think I have the answer to it or the perfect solution, but it's definitely the ongoing path of striving and flowing, striving. But what's true is that when we focus on the gap, that insufficiency triggers a mental state of negativity. I'm not enough, right? And it then eventually leads us there. Whereas when we're thinking about the gain, and I didn't know those 2 terms, so thanks for that. But thinking about like, you know what? This is where I am. So acceptance, once again, what energy is needed today? Do I need to rest and reflect? Or do I need to like, all right, get some shit together, like, let's do it? And the question that you'll remember from the Search Inside Yourself program that I frequently ask, what's of service today? How can I be of service to myself and to the world? And I think truly answering the question can lead us into the light of the answer, because it removes the ego, the self. It's not about me. It's like, what's of service from a compassionate point? And I have to apply it to my own life because I do it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing about all of this, right? It's like it feels, especially when we carry the story of I'm the mindfulness guy, I'm the whatever, it feels like we should have it figured out. But really, life is just a long figuring it out, right? Like it's just a series. It's a lifetime practice. All of this stuff is learning and relearning and adapting and evolving. And so to kind of hold it a little bit more lightly than it's like one and done.
Yeah. And the last thing I'd say is when we're 90, 95 on our deathbeds, and I was talking to Jordan about it, who is also a hospice and palliative care doctor. And it's just like, what am I going to remember? Will I remember how much I stressed over the OKRs, or will I remember that retreat I attended that felt transformational or that felt fun, whatever, right? So that constant reminder of gaining perspective. What's going on here? How will I remember this? I always say the only two people I'm going to pay attention to are my 10-year-old self and my 90-year-old self in my head, right? Like those two voices, what would they say in the situation?
So, Caroline, now we're going to shift into what I call the Mindful Fire Final Four. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. First question. Your book, The Purpose Reset, is all about connecting and living with your purpose. So for someone who maybe they have a sense of their purpose or maybe they have no sense of their purpose, how would you advise that they practically connect with their purpose and start living into it?
I have one word for that: curiosity. Follow the breadcrumbs of your curiosity, because it's a word that is attainable, grounded. It feels close relative to what we usually say, which is follow your passion. That feels unattainable, a little utopic, out there, far away, difficult. And so follow your curiosity and see where it takes you. One step at a time, it's likely going to take you really far away.
And how will you know when you've quote unquote found it?
There is no end point. There's always something else. There's always something, or you're just where you are. You don't need to be constantly looking for the next breadcrumb. It'll come. Follow your curiosity and purpose will come to you, versus going to strive for something out there that is difficult to find.
Great advice. Follow your curiosity. That's how I run these podcast episodes. That's how I try to live my life. But it's a good reminder to try to live my life that way and to be of service, because I'm trying to get these workshops going and I feel like I'm forcing, right? I feel like I'm trying to get it to happen and I'm taking action and I am being of service. It feels a little forcey right now. And I want to kind of relax into allowing and remembering that this is what I wanted. And I'm doing this not because I need the money. That's why I got the financial independence side figured out first, so I could do this for fun, but I'm still forcing. So
you see, there's no end. There's
no end.
A prior version of you would have said, once that happens, that's it, right? You're financially independent. You're doing the thing you love. You get to connect with people. You get to live your purpose. That's it. No, it's not an end point. It keeps on going. We keep on learning. It's fun. Otherwise, it'd be boring.
It is also infuriating.
It is also infuriating. And all of those emotions are telling you something.
Right.
So what is this telling me about me right now? So the journey is to go back to the self. They teach us the path is the purpose. Is the path where we learn. Once we get there, there's no more learning. So it keeps on going. Keeps it fun, entertaining, and infuriating and frustrating too.
That's true. It's life, right? It's
life.
All right. The second question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone early on their path to financial independence?
I am not an expert here, but what I've done is just make sure there's always a gap between what you earn and what you spend. And of course, a positive one. I think there's something about society kind of forcing us to consume a lot. And my advice would be, let's question that and let's change that. It's not good for the planet. Not necessary. What is it telling you about you and the story you're making about yourself that you need to buy so much stuff? And how can you reduce some of that and increase that gap while being more mindful about our planet?
Very good. And the third question is, what piece of advice would you give to someone getting started with meditation and or mindfulness?
Meditation or mindfulness, one, they're not the same thing. So beginning with that, mindfulness is a way of living, way of being more present and curious and compassionate in the moment. Meditation is a dedicated practice that can help us cultivate mindfulness and many other things. And that's just oversimplification. But I think both are really beautiful practices that can help and have such a big impact in so many areas of our lives and who we are and how we get to live. But oftentimes I include myself, we think of them as something I have to do. And it's just like, it needs to be in my calendar, so I get to do it. And so I forgot to do the thing this morning, and then I have to do it at night. And what if we opened up those spaces as existing? Can I just be, right? Opening up spaces to be in the present, removing so much of the weight once again that we carry about like meditation is something I have to do and it has to last 20 minutes. And if it doesn't, then I didn't do it properly. So I guess what I'm trying to say is removing the judgment and the self-criticism associated with a practice that is meant to do the opposite. So a moment to live and exist and be, just be.
Great advice. I love that. And I'm glad you distinguish them from each other. Obviously, we taught that in Search Inside Yourself, and I've said it many times on the podcast, but it can't be said enough that they're related, but they're not the same thing. So thank you for that. And finally, how can people connect with you online, learn more about your books and your program?
Yes, thank you. So everything lives on my website, carolinalasso.com. And there I talk about my books if you're interested. I am mostly active on LinkedIn. So let's connect there. Send me a note. Hi, how you doing? What's your purpose? Do you have a purpose statement? Do you feel confused about it? Let's chat. I'm always, seriously, always open because I learn so much from each conversation. And I love this topic. And I also have some workshops and retreats that I'm hosting, in-person retreats focused on purpose. That's where I get to truly live my purpose. And it's just so beautiful to connect in person and go deep and have the deep conversations and be in nature. And I'll be probably doing more of that, but also virtual workshops where we get to connect with other people and remember that we're not alone on this journey and that everyone, no matter how polished their LinkedIn profile looks, no matter how many followers they have, everyone at some point has gone through that confusion and has asked the big questions. And if not, then they should, because those are the big important questions that bring meaning and fulfillment eventually. So yeah, let's connect, and I'd love to stay in touch.
Awesome. We'll put all of those links in the show notes to your books, to your website, to your Purpose Academy, and to your LinkedIn so people can reach out directly and chat with you. Carolina, thank you so much for being here. It's been a wonderful episode. It's given me a lot to think about. Really appreciate you being here and sharing your wisdom with the audience.
This was just such a beautiful conversation, and I somehow felt the audience, even though they're not here. And so if you're listening, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for making it to the end and for spending this time together, really asking the beautiful questions that can lead us to flourishing, fulfillment, and purpose. So thank you. Thank you for this beautiful space.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode of the Mindful Fire podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, I invite you to hit subscribe wherever you're listening to this. This just lets the platforms know you're getting value from the episodes and you want to be here when I release additional content. If you're ready to start your Mindful Fire journey, go to mindfulfire.org/start and download my free envisioning guide. In just 10 minutes, this guide will help you craft a clear and inspiring vision for your life. Again, you can download it for free at mindfulfire.org/start. Thanks again, and I'll catch you next time on the Mindful Fire podcast.